Chinese Premier Li Qiang met with U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen in Beijing, emphasizing the global significance of putting China-U.S. relations back on the right track. Yellen says Washington wants a healthy economic competition, but defended trade curbs imposed by the United States on security grounds. Li said strengthening cooperation is beneficial for both nations.
You have long been engaged in China-U.S. exchanges and cooperation, in particular China-U.S. economic and trade relationship. You're not just a participant, but also a builder. So I'm really looking forward to having the opportunity to exchange views with you.
We seek healthy economic competition that is not winner-take-all, but with a fair set of rules will benefit both of our countries.
Yellen arriving in the Chinese capital on Thursday for the four-day visit. It is her first trip to China as Treasury Chief, making her the second senior U.S. representative to visit China in less than a month. This follows a visit by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. A lot to unfold here, and for that we're going to call in our good friend Victor Gao to talk about what all this means for U.S.-China relations. Victor, of course, is the chair professor at Soochow University. Victor, always good to see you. Thanks very much for taking time to chat with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
I want to start out by what we just heard Janet Yellen, if you listened really closely. She doesn't want a winner-take-all and is looking for a healthy competition. Is that what China is looking for, and do you see anything early on that both sides should take some positive feelings away from?
First of all, I think China is very happy to welcome Secretary Yellen to visit Beijing. After all, among all the cabinet secretaries, Secretary Yellen has been the most constructive and most objective in assessing the importance of China-U.S. cooperations. She even went on to say that decoupling will be a disaster for the United States as well as for China, of course. Therefore, in that sense, his visit is important, and hopefully it will contribute to normalize the better relations between China and the United States. On the other hand, I think the United States is really trying to put a negative twist on the so-called competition between China and the United States.
Really?
From the Chinese perspective,
so?
Normal competition should not be a problem. But the United States is weaponizing competition. The United States tried to deny, for example, semiconductor chips to China, and this is very bad for China, very bad for the United States and all the other countries and regions which export semiconductor chips to China.
Let's talk about, I know that when Janet Yellen was there, she brought a number of U.S. business leaders with her for one of the first meetings. What do you think she was trying to show there?
Again, I think Secretary Yellen demonstrated her pragmatism and realism, because we know for sure that people-to-people relations, business relations between China and the United States have been very important. For many decades, we say this is the stabilizing factor for China-U.S. relations, regardless of how badly the political relations might have been. However, in recent years, the United States wants to weaponize China-U.S. trade. They not only put on a lot of tariff on Chinese export to the United States, they also go in increasingly aggressive manner in denying export opportunities to the China, and also try to limit in significant ways the technological cooperation between China and the United States. In that sense, again, Secretary Yellen bringing prominent business people from the United States joining her visit to China demonstrated that the U.S. government actually cannot pull it off by cutting off company-to-company normal economic exchanges between the Chinese business community and the American business community. As a matter of fact, the more such visits, the better. Mutual investments in each other country will be better for both China and the United States.
Yes, and we also saw banking leader Jamie Dimon go there, Elon Musk, a number of other U.S. business leaders as well. And Yellen is, of course, the Treasury Secretary, not the trade representative. But how important is it that you're you're having someone of her level meet there now. Yellen has been somebody who has been perhaps more outspoken than anybody in the Biden administration about her argument that the ongoing tariffs that were imposed by the United States some 7 years ago now are really doing no one any good.
Absolutely. To that extent, I completely agree with Secretary of Treasury Yellen, because first of all, the tariffs that the United States is charging the Chinese export to the United States is not paid by China. It's not paid by the Chinese government or what the American call the Communist Party of China. The tariffs are paid by the American consumers and the American importers of the Chinese goods exported to the United States. Now, the United States is still suffering from the consequences of sustained inflation, and part of the reason contributing to inflation is because of the tariffs imposed by the US government on Chinese export to the United States. Therefore, it is time to reduce, if not minimize, or completely eliminate the US government-initiated tariffs on Chinese export, because by doing that, it's not only philosophically the right thing to do, but also it will help reduce, if not significantly lower, the inflation rate, which is plaguing the American consumers right now. It is time to do the right thing by the United States, and it is time for China to reciprocate by removing tariffs imposed on US exports to China.
Victor, right now one would believe that there's a time for diplomacy and a time for policy to ease the tension between the two largest economies on Earth. How concerned are you, however, looking forward to the next U.S. election cycle, which is kicking in, that you're going to see more China bashing and it's going to be more of the same thing that doesn't really help anyone in the end?
Yes, indeed. The presidential election is coming on, and it may really usher in greater anti-China hostilities by the U.S. Politicians of all kinds. And this will really push China-U.S. relations into a more challenging and more dangerous era. On the other hand, I think every one of us need to ask whether China bashing, if we use that term, is good for the fundamental interest of the American people. Does China bashing help solve any particular problems facing the American people? No. China bashing may make you happy or make you believe that you can get some more votes from the voters who may be equally agitated, but China bashing doesn't solve the American problems. As a matter of fact, closer cooperation between China and the United States may actually help generate more jobs in the United States, may help solve the deficiencies in the connectivity projects in the United States, infrastructure, you name it. The United States really need to do a lot of things at home to make sure that it will have greater productivity and efficiency. And China is a factor which can help the Americans to achieve this goal, rather than, for example, anti-China bashing can help the Americans in this regard at all.
Victor Gao, we always appreciate your insight, my friend. Thank you so much and have a good weekend.
For having me.